Hi, welcome to the Library Podcast. My name's Kim. In this episode, we are just having a casual conversation about summer reading, what we're reading this summer, what we hope to read, and what our reading vibe is for this specific summer. With me is Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, what have you been reading?
Yeah, so I'm currently reading H is for Hawk by Helen Macdonald. And I'm about halfway through now. And I do want to thank you for recommending this book to me. I'm really, really enjoying it. And it's an older book than I thought. I looked at the cover and it's from about 10 years ago. Yeah, so I really missed the boat on that one. But I think part of the issue, probably for me, would have been the title would have, and there's that goshawk on the front, and I probably wouldn't have realized what was behind that cover. Like I wouldn't have realized that it is this deep, heartfelt memoir. I probably would have looked at that and gone, "Oh, that's a science book." And yeah, science is a bit beyond me, so I can appreciate animals from afar, but I'm not that one to, memorize facts about. So I think I would have misunderstood the cover a little bit. But I do think it's interesting she called it H's for Hawk. Now you recommended this book to me, so I just want to ask you why did you enjoy it so much?
Yeah, I remember the year, maybe it's not the year, but like around the time it came out, it just was everywhere. And finally I was like, let's pick this up and see what all the hubbub is. And I was just really drawn in by the way that it's about dealing with the grief of losing her father, but then she mixes that in with the story of T.H. White so that it's not just about herself. And then through that also you learn a bit about what hawking is. And I found that really fascinating, even though it was like a world I never had thought of before. So I just really enjoyed how she weaved so many things in together. And I just think she's just a really beautiful writer.
Oh, so poetic. I was thinking about that. It's like she's almost like hypnotizing the reader, her sentences like uncoil, like one of those cobras in a basket, and then with the eyes, turning like ooh. I just find that I just escape into it, and that's amazing for a memoir. And I think that it reads it is so poetic. Yeah, I mean the way she phrases things. And I wanted to ask you, there's this one part in the memoir where she talks about the first time she goes out walking with her goshawk, like to train the goshawk to be able to have all this stimuli around her. Mabel, I love her name, Mabel. It's adorable. And she talks about how so many people, like she thought everyone was going to come up to her and she was going to have to explain herself over and over again. But she found that so many people didn't even look at her, totally avoided her, and acted like nothing was happening. And then she said, and then there were some people who she felt were like the outliers of society. They're the ones that would come up to her and ask her about the hawk and say, "That's incredible that you're doing that. Such a beautiful creature." And I started thinking about like, what would I do if I were walking down a street in Marmara and I saw someone with a hawk on their wrist? What would I do? Now, I probably would be terrified of the hawk, so I would keep my distance, but I definitely would be, sorry to use a rhyming word, but gawking from afar at this hawk because, I mean, it's not something you see every day. Like she explains that, years and years ago, of course, you would see everyone out walking with their hawk along the streets. But I mean, those days are over, and now people obviously are walking their dogs or cats. So I think that I just thought about how I would react. So I definitely wouldn't go close because I would be terrified, but I definitely would be curious. How about you? How do you think you would react?
Yeah, that is an interesting tidbit because it's almost like I think people are really desensitized to so many things. They're not paying attention as much anymore, especially with their cell phones. But also there's the fear of engaging with other people. So you're just like, I'm not going to engage by not looking. But I actually remember shortly after reading it, I was somewhere and there was someone who had a hawk with the little hat. I guess you don't call it a hat, but the covering on the head. And I was just like kind of watching, but I was a little afraid because I knew that, it's a predator and you want to be careful. I also didn't want to spook anyone, but then they invited over. They were like, they saw that I was looking and they were like, oh yeah, and spoke a little bit about what they were doing and their interest in it. So it was funny because I did run into that, but would I have noticed it as much if I hadn't just read the book? And I wonder if I would have been one of those people who was like, you just didn't notice as much, but then you read the book and you're just aware of it. Like I'm aware more of hawks in the sky now too because of the book, and it gave me more of a respect for them, but still a fear of them a little because they're predators, and she doesn't hold back on how they prey and eat. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I would be absolutely terrified. I think that I love her, description. I love, there's this moment when she's first training the goshawk and she feels, because she has to stay with it like for 3 days straight, like constantly. And she talks about how she actually begins to feel what the goshawk is feeling. Like, it's just incredible. And it's such an honest portrayal of not only the taming of the hawk, but like you mentioned before, the grief that she's going through. And I began to think about how in a previous podcast, I talked about how I felt writing poetry is so vulnerable. And I realized that writing a memoir is actually more vulnerable because there is nowhere to hide. Like with a poem, if someone says something, you can just say, "Oh, well, that's not real. It's not true, or it's based on truth, but it's not completely true." But I think with a memoir, if you do it right, like obviously you can omit things, or you can lie. But the reader will know. I think the reader will know you're holding back. But really, I mean, wow, you can't hide at all. Like this is the truth. So I kind of had a revelation while I was reading her memoir, because she does bare her soul. And I don't think she holds back at all in any regard. And that makes it even more of a powerful read. So I definitely, want to recommend this book to everyone out there, even people who think, "Oh, I don't go in for those science." It's not a science book, like what I thought. Like it's, but even if you are into animals, then you'll love it too. Yes. But I guess what I'm saying is, I think it's for everyone because we've all gone through grief. So even that part of it, and then the challenge of for her, like training a goshawk, like I can't think of very many other things that would be as difficult from what I've been reading.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have to be so devoted.
Yes. So what are you reading?
Well, I kicked the summer off reading Homer's Iliad. And then now I'm reading the Odyssey to finish it up before I see the movie, which I won't see it opening weekend because it'll be too busy. So it's sort of epic tales are sort of filling my summer at the moment. I think sometimes people are afraid to read those texts because they think they'll be impenetrable, but they really aren't. And there's so many different translations that you can find the translation that can help you enter that world. But I'm really happy I read the Iliad first, because now I'll have like the whole, well, not the whole part of that story of the like near the end of the war, and then Odysseus going on his journey and his epic way home. And I think that it suits our times, so I can see why someone would be engaged with the text to make it a movie now, because it really is about facing difficult obstacles. And it sort of feels like we just keep getting more obstacles each day, and that they seem almost insurmountable.
I wanted to also mention a book I read earlier in the summer, and it's very much in that same vein about, well, obviously not the Odyssey, but the idea of life being really hard and trying to overcome. And the book I read was The River is Waiting by Wally Lamb. And of course, Wally Lamb became very famous with She's Come Undone in the 90s. And it was a book I loved so much. And it was that kind of book where it stayed with me. The main character stayed with me for days and days after I put it down. And I had such a visceral reaction to it. And it was just an amazing book. It's probably in my top 10. Like if I had to make a top 10, that would be my top 10 ever. So of course I wanted to read this book because I love Wally Lamb's writing. And while I didn't have that same reaction as She's Come Undone, I really, really found it to be very interesting read, and it was very touching and very moving. And it basically explores the concept. So the main character explores the concept of forgiveness, of the possibility of forgiving yourself. So the main character, because of his bad decisions, he causes just an unspeakable tragedy. And so the novel explores the idea of how do you forgive yourself and how do you move on with your life? Because this could happen to anyone. And in Wally Lamb's hands, he just does such a good job of really drawing in the reader to this possibility and what it would be like, the inner turmoil. And there's that battle, that sense of battling back to life after probably not wanting to live and not knowing how to move forward. So I really recommend that. And it's at the Marmara Library. And it could be checked out because it is an amazing book, but it's The River is Waiting by Wally Lamb.
Oh, wow. Thanks for the recommendations. The other book I read, which was between the Iliad and the Odyssey, because I needed a bit of a break, was it's called The Director. It's by a German writer, Daniel Kehlmann, I think. I'll put it in the notes, his last name. And I mentioned it in the last podcast, but it was so fascinating because he took the inspiration of this German director, G.W. Pabst, who did a lot of silent films, who went to Hollywood, but then decided to go back to Germany. When he goes back to Germany, it's when Hitler's in power. And it's this very interesting look at art, politics, the way that they intertwine, what it means to be an artist, how an artist can be complicit in things without wanting to be. So I thought it was a great read. And actually, the chapters were really short, which sometimes are great for the summer. Because if you have other things going on and you just can have like those small pockets of time that you can read, this was great for that because then you put the chapter down. And sometimes the narrative would switch a bit from whose perspective it was, depending on the chapter. But that works for that kind of book because you're just like, okay, here. And I do have to say, it's about real people. G.W. Pabst, his wife, you hear about Louise Brooks a bit, but it's a fictionalization of it. So it's that interesting blend of truth and fiction, which did lead me to often looking things up to be like, wait a minute, is that part real? Is that character real? And some of them aren't, which I thought was fascinating.
That sounds fascinating. And it is true that we think about now how we want to keep art, like with the threat of AI and everything, and how there's the politics of not valuing art, and we're just clinging to it. We gotta keep it in our lives. It's so important. So that sounds like a great book.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it.
Yeah. And what are you hoping to read later this summer?
So I know that once I'm done the Odyssey, I'm going to need something that's maybe a bit quicker to read and maybe lighthearted. So after I read the Iliad, I read a book by a Korean author that was called Every Day I Read. And it was so great because it was just like very heartwarming and about reasons why you should read every day. It was really positive. So I think I will try to find something like that. And then I am about to read also a collection of short stories, which I think fits the summer as well because you can put it down. You enter the world and then you put it down. But because the summer is so oppressively hot here at this time, and I think it will be for the rest of the summer, I think after that I'm also ready to pick up another epic to just fully immerse myself because I probably will not be going outside very much.
That's funny. Yeah, so I definitely want to finish H is for Hawk, and thank you again. I can't thank you enough for recommending that book. And then I've been hearing about this book called Shark Heart, a love story by Emily, I hope I say her name right, Habeck. And I love a good magic realism, a book of magic realism. So it's about a wife who deals with her husband mutating into a great white shark. So that just sounds right up my alley. So I'm hopefully gonna read that. And then as for another memoir, so many people have been recommending Margaret Atwood's newest memoir. Well, I guess it's her only memoir, Book of Lives, a memoir of sorts, which I think is a very thick book too. So so that's another one that I would like to read. Probably later in the summer, maybe closer to fall when you can snuggle up with a long book.
I remember the Shark Heart book, the Sterling Book Company. The owner, she recommended that one. She really liked it. Yeah. And I just want to say that anyone who's on the fence about H is for Hawk, it's a masterpiece. It's so good.
I agree.
So we hope that this podcast has inspired you to maybe pick up a book you weren't going to during the summer and to escape the heat with a good read. Do you have any last words, Emery?
Happy reading to everyone, wherever you may be. And maybe people are, back into those beach reads, which it is the time for that. So just keep on reading.
That's a good message. And we will be back in 2 weeks discussing healing fiction. Thanks so much for listening and keep reading.